Hi, my name is Nathan, and today we're going to do a first full story arc review of Venom, issues number 1 through 5, brought to you by Rated Comics. We're going to discover what happens when Eddie Brock becomes the new King in Black, the new symbiote god, and what happens next. Timestamps will be in description if you wish to go from issue to issue. Link in description if you wish to purchase any of the comic books or the comic book set in this video. Support the art, support the industry. With that being said, let's get to it. Now, in this issue, we begin with at a motel. There's army with heavy artillery just ready to go in and do all this kind of work and damage. It is unknown what's going to happen. Venom, which is now taken over by Eddie Brock's son Dylan, and Venom is telling Dylan not to draw attention to yourself. Whatever you do, don't bond with the symbiote. This has to be taking place in the future. And I love the distinction with Eddie Brock's Venom versus Dylan's Venom, because in Dylan's Venom you see the chains wrapped around his wrist and it's more veiny and just a different kind of look. And the symbiote tells Dylan that we need to be running, and he's like, I know, they're after us. We warned you about this. I can feel it. You know, you want to stay back and fight, but it won't bring him back. So this is taking place after Eddie Brock's death. And how can Eddie Brock die? I thought he was a god after the King in Black in the Venom 200 series. And we go back to a flashback of 12 hours ago. Eddie Brock's Venom, and he's the new King in Black after the King in Black after they defeat Null. And he's a god now. So he's in space answering to a distress signal halfway across the galaxy with these 4 other symbiotes that they don't have a host. Now he moves them where he puts them. They go as he says go. He controls them with his mind. As they come across this relief freighter, Eddie Brock tells the symbiotes, go in, you know, let's probably taken over by space pirates. It's priority number 1. We go in and we save anyone we can. Priority 2 is to teach these creeps a lesson. Now, a lot of the planets, what Eddie Brock is doing is clean up the mess that Null did to the galaxy, whether he slayed them, conquered them, or killed them. Everyone across the galaxy fears the symbiote. Then we see this other symbiote with his red eyes saying, yes, Eddie. And he's very sinister, very off-putting. Something's sus up with this guy, or this symbiote. So as they get into the ship or the freight, Eddie Brock tells them, one of you form a seal while I open the inner airlock. We don't want an atmosphere breach. And they're like, yes, Eddie. So one of the symbiotes seals it off so there won't be any breaches in that kind. As he's cleaning up the mess that Null did across the galaxy, Eddie Brock knows that it's going to take time, and a lot of time, and he's had a lot of work to do and a lot of work to get done, because there's so much that needs to be done to clean up the mess and the killing that Null did. And I like how Eddie Brock has a name for each of these symbiotes, right? He calls them John, Paul, George, and Ringo, and these are pirates, and they're just not having it. They see a stinking symbiote and they're ready to blast off, and they say vengeance for the dead of Largo 4. Like, I don't know what that means exactly, but out of context, or guessing the context of it, it was one of the dozen worlds that Null might have destroyed while under Null's control. And Eddie Brock is, you know, fighting them, ducking their firepower. And he's just like, yeah, it's no wonder I'm not popular with, you know, symbiotes are not popular right now. It doesn't change a thing. I can't tell him I'm not the bad guy, I'm a good guy, because they're too busy blasting. I gotta defend myself, and I gotta teach these pirates a lesson, because we are Venom. Even though he's a god of symbiotes now, because he's so longly associated with Venom, it's hard just to turn that off and say and understand that. Meanwhile, we get a look into Dylan's personal life. We understand that Eddie Brock is the god symbiote now, and he's busy cleaning up the galaxy. It's one thing being a father, but I'm dealing with cleaning up the galaxy and protecting the galaxy, man. Eddie Brock being a god now, he can simultaneously control where he goes with a thought, which is really cool, but it's one of those, have you ever not tried to think of an elephant at the same time while not thinking about the elephant? You get what I'm saying. It's a tough thought. So Dylan gets into a ton of fights at school. It's his way of taking out aggression from not having his father home for a couple weeks because he's out protecting the galaxy. He's in the principal's office, and the principal tells him, I need to have a conversation with your dad. And if I don't have that conversation with your dad, I'm going to have to report you to the incident board, because if things keep going this way, you're going to be expelled. So you must ask your father to get in touch with me, Mr. Brock. And then Sleeper's like, oh, well, I see something's wrong with you on a rainy day, man. You want to talk about? No, I'm cool. It's just like he feels abandoned, but he knows his dad has responsibilities to do. But at the same time, as a teenager, when you're going through hormones and confusion and puberty, how do you take all this in? Especially with the fact that my dad is not just dad. He's basically a symbiote god too. And Dylan's going through all this emotional turmoil, and he just tells Sleeper, you know, I'll figure it out. I'll be fine. So as Dylan gets home, you get to see how life at home is. And when there's a teenager without any parental guidance, It's gonna get messy. Pizza, the diet's for crap, and the house is unkept. He's missing his dad. And then we see this mysterious figure looking into Eddie from a distance. Eddie Brock is dealing with these pirates and going back and forth. He finally tangles him up. And as he tangles him up, it feels like he's standing on the edge of a cliff. Something's behind him, like his venom sense is going off for the first time and he doesn't know why. He goes into George's head because George alerts him something different's going on. Eddie, help. He shifts his conscience into another symbiote and he goes in and he's like, oh my God, he wish he hadn't seen this. And it's one of the symbiotes, Ringo, where he just massacres everyone in the escape shuttle where the crew is supposed to be evacuating. And Ringo's like, hello, Eddie. And Ringo tells him, I have a message from the future, Eddie. I want to make sure you listen. And Eddie Brock's like, who are you? Is this Noel? Is this Carnage? Is this something new? What is this? And whatever it is, Eddie can't move into its mind and control it. If he can't control it, he can't stop it. And guess what? He probably doesn't even want to touch it. And then Ringo tells him, don't sit too comfortably on your throne, King in Black. Soon, it will be empty. This is not a threat, not a warning, simply a statement of fact. You will not know the day nor the hour. You won't see it coming, Eddie. So say your goodbyes. Now talk to the people you love, your son, other people. Tell them to run, tell them to hide. It won't make any difference. And the way this guy speaks is as if he's speaking like he already won. And this puts Eddie Brock into like some kind of perplexed confusion. He needs to think fast, get out of there. Someone will come soon to find the pirates and secure the cargo, but he shouldn't be here. So he tells all the symbiotes to get out. We need to get on the move. He needs to know what to do next. As Dylan's asleep at home, we see Eddie Brock telling Dylan to wake up. He wakes up and Eddie Brock tells Dylan, I need you to pack and get your things ready. Where we're going, it doesn't matter. Where's your Venom symbiote? Dylan's like, I don't know. He goes off on his own sometimes and there haven't been any Venom sightings or brains being devoured. So I figured things are all right. I'm going to take a look around the house while you pack. Yeah, it is kind of sussy behavior, but that explains if that's the real Eddie Brock telling him we got to get out because he's concerned about his son. But he doesn't seem all that concerned. It just seems like he's trying to get some things like where the things are at, you know? Dylan gets another phone call and it's his dad and he answers. It's like, hey, Dylan, listen to me. Don't say a word. It's your dad. It's me. It's okay. Just listen. I know he's in the house with you. I want you to say, never mind, I found I was looking for, and let's go. And he's like, okay, well, what the heck is going on? But he tells him, never mind, I found what you're looking for. So he complies with his dad. And Eddie tells him, okay, that brought us some time. I need you to leave without saying goodbye. But why, Dad? It's complicated. I know you're already packed, and that's good. Get your shoes. We got to go. Go down the drain pipe outside and sneak out. Well, if you're on the phone and this other Eddie, which we can assume is a symbiote here, how do I know I can trust you? Eddie tells him, you don't know. Just trust yourself. So Dylan, siding with the dad on the phone and not the symbiote or whatever this thing is in his house. Eddie Brock tells Dylan, okay, remember, don't draw any attention to yourself. Don't get into any trouble. I know you said you haven't seen Venom, but in case you do, remember, don't bond with the symbiote. So we see Eddie Brock in this motel, and his mind is just going crazy thinking about, how is this guy from the future able to talk to me? Why was he so comfortable? Now he's second guessing every decision that he's ever made. He goes through all his emotions, how his body feels heavy, alien. Should I use the spire to set my mind out anymore? I thought I was good. It was a good thing I was in control. And I love the fact that when you're a god or someone's a god, I love how they have to up the stakes on this. And he remembers what Ringo said. He said I wouldn't see it coming, but what if it doesn't come to me? What if I go to it? So Eddie Brock realizes he can move his mind instantaneously and bond with any symbiote anywhere, but not just anywhere. Why not anyone? So it's like he goes to this trance and sends his conscience into this time warp, and he starts seeing flashbacks. Like it looks like here we see Dylan getting off the bus or whatnot, Eddie Brock running out the door, an explosion, and then he's like going through this time warp of I'm stuck, I'm unstuck, an air pilot saying the boys are only priority. Bedlam is my name in this vicious looking red symbiote thing. And we see Ken the Conqueror here telling Eddie Brock, I tell you this as an oldest friend, Ed, you cannot win. One thing we know about Eddie Brock is you put this brother in a situation, he will fight and claw and tooth and nail his way up out of it if he could. I don't know if this is something that's going to happen as foreshadowing in future issues, or if this is just Eddie going through some kind of weird time lapse trance. So he wakes up, and when he wakes up, he saw something in there in the current events of time, something waiting for him. So Dylan calls, he picks up the call and went straight to voicemail. Dylan, it's your dad. I'm sorry, but you're in danger. But before he can even get the message across, or before Dylan can receive the voicemail, it's too late. Dylan's bus arrived, and this is it. He is here. And this is the moment where it all changes. And in a single moment, we see this heavily armed military-grade helicopter launching a rocket at the hotel, instantly killing Eddie Brock in human form. And this is just bananas. What's a kid to do when he witnesses his own father getting annihilated like that? Dylan doesn't know this, but Eddie Brock's consciousness is traveled in time in a timeline, so we don't know where that's going. So that guy in the cap that was watching Dylan all along was Venom disguised in human form. And the pilot, where the pilot says the boys are only priority, that is the foreshadowing that what Eddie Brock saw in that time travel, that's what he saw the pilot saying. The boys are only priority. We have a secondary field subject. Get the boy. Dylan Brock realizes he is in trouble, so now he bonds the very thing he was instructed not to do. He bonds with the Venom symbiote, and he just rages, goes in a killing spree, drowns himself in rage and fury. The voices in his head is just like going through his head, and like he sees red, kills him. They shoot, they attack, and his attacks are futile. Their attacks are futile. And he says, although he doesn't understand the repercussions of all this just yet, this is how it all begins, and he just lays them all out, wiping the floor with them. We go back to Eddie Brock, and we see that his consciousness is traveling, tumbling through in time. How far in time is this brother going? And he feels like he's at home. Well, not home, but it's like this utopia symbiote, whatever the case it is. See someone say, don't try to talk. You just reconstituted yourself from the available matter. You'll need a minute to get your bearings. So what all this is about is homeboy Meridius says, I'll be with you every step of the way. We're friends here, but where you're at right now is the furthest end of all time. And he's like, welcome to my garden. And that's where we end the issue. And this was a fantastic and fun read. I'm looking forward to see how this goes. So it's awesome that Eddie Brock takes his consciousness and moves it, but goes like the time lapse, and now he's at the end of time. I don't know where this is going to go, but this issue is definitely worth adding to your comic book collection. Link in description, by the way. We begin this issue with Eddie Brock apparently killed in an explosion. Eddie warns his son Dylan to not bond with the symbiote Venom. Too late for that now. In Dylan's defense, I'm not sure he had much of a choice given the circumstances. Dylan, along with his new bonded symbiote Venom and Sleeper, go on the run. Dylan wakes up on a train having a nightmare of his father's death. He feels Venom could have gone after his dad and saved him instead of Dylan. Venom reassures him that his dad would have wanted him to live, and that's why he came for Dylan. As they exit the train, Dylan listens to a voice message left by his father, telling him that he's sorry for the danger he's in, and it's the kind of danger that scares Eddie himself, and he wishes he were there to protect him. Eddie feels like Dylan is paying his toll. Then again, perhaps we all carry what we must. He wants Dylan to be careful and to be brave, and he promises they will meet again. If you take anything with you, let it be this as a final closing of his message. He made a lot of bad choices and bad decisions by being bullheaded and headstrong, but because of Dylan, Eddie has hope. As a closing of this message, if we don't see each other by the time you hear this message, son, go to Max's diner and ask for Archer Lyle, a reporter who is an old friend of Eddie's. If anyone knows how to stay off the grid, it'll be him. Dylan does exactly that and asks around about Archer Lyle without any success. All he can do is just drink coffee and wait. On TV, Senator Crane is on TV giving a speech about symbiotes, which I'm sure is heavily influenced after the King in Black events and Extreme Carnage series. In other words, he expresses that symbiotes are not something to remain complacent about, and he regrets it because it cost him his father's life. And now symbiotes are running around without accountability. So in his father's memory and with the help of Mayor Fisk, he is making it a mission to address the symbiote's menace to the highest echelons of power. That can't be good. Dylan knows that this is trouble for him, and they have to go. Too many eyes are on them. Sleeper suggests that the plan is to leave and to go someplace quiet and come back to the diner when they have a plan to find Archer Lyle. Then lose the phone because ain't no telling who's keeping track of you. Here we have a very political conversation between Senator Crane and Carlton Drake. Drake praises that Crane's speech is all over every news feed on loop. And we are also working with local authorities to address the symbiote threat. Local authorities with high-tech military-grade weapons, says Senator Crane? That smirk on Carlton's face says it all right there. With the right funding, they do. Senator Crane doesn't like Drake, but given what happened to his father, the matter of the symbiote is of greater concern to him. Grave concern! This is giving life to the Life Foundation for defining symbiote policy. Of course, Drake's like that. Crane having a congressional seat, and Drake will have all the funding he needs for years to come. The next step in the plan is to capture Dylan, and he's optimistic about it because based on the last encounter, they were able to neutralize the human host. Not to mention, the symbiote is with the child now, and he's inexperienced. So Dylan's walking down the aisle, and we see like Life Foundation strike team assembling, watching with binoculars, and Sleeper's like, hey, Dylan, you know, I picked up scents a few blocks ago, and they've managed to stick with us the whole time. I think we're being followed. So Venom's like, duck into the alley, coming to the left. Maybe we can slip out on the other side. Dylan just that, but the strike team is on pursuit, and they're like, Team 2, head him off, cut him off at the other one. Let's contain this alleyway. So the roof is on point, the strike team on the ground is on point, and everything, and something's about to go down. Dylan knows it, the symbiote knows it, and we as a reader, we all know it. So as they assemble the strike team, and they're like, is he boxed in? Okay, get ready. Venom symbiote attacks, and symbiote attaches to him, and they're like, this is symbiote, take him down now. But Venom is wiping the floor with this SWAT team, or not SWAT team, Life Foundation strike team, and it's just all out going bananas here. But one of the team members or the captain says, deploy sonic mines. And when they do that, the sound frequency detaches the Venom symbiote from Dylan, and it must be screaming in pain. And they're like, Roof, team, nullifiers now. Dylan's like, Venom, do something. The only thing Venom could do in that moment is pick up a Jeep Wrangler and throw it at him and keep those nullifiers on him, boys. But little do they know, Sleeper is behind him, and he unleashes an ass whooping of his own right. Ah! This is just going out bananas, and you got to love this right here. So as all this pandemonium comes about, Archer Lyle comes up and does her own butt kicking in her own right. And she tells Dylan in the Venom symbiote, I've been telling you since the diner, and they've been telling you probably before that. You used your phone on your way, and that pretty much gives every camera access to you. So you know what? You might have had them, but I got you. You need to come with me if you want to live. Terminator style, and that's how we end this issue. I gotta say, I did enjoy this read. I was way more hyped about Venom #1 with the whole time warp and into the cosmos and what the heck are we going over here? But I do understand this series is juggling Eddie Brock and his son Dylan. So I respect that they use issue #2 for Dylan, and issue #1 was a strong point with Eddie Brock. I want to see more of Eddie Brock personally, but I do get the more personalized touch with Dylan. Not a bad read at all. You'll have fun. Link in description if you wish to add this comic book to your comic book collection. In the previous issue, Dylan Brock met Archer, who had known his father Eddie when he was a journalist. In this issue, we begin with Carlton Drake having a conversation with Mr. Carson about what they really know about symbiotes. What they know is symbiotes are extraterrestrial in origin and depend on a physical host to survive and thrive on different worlds. Hence the word symbiote. Their symbiosis is a matter of choice than physiology. Then we begin with Carlton Drake having a different grasp on what the symbiotes are. When Null the symbiote god invaded Earth, once Null and the invasion happened, one thing they knew about symbiotes is they know very little about symbiotes that are forever evolving around our world. Mr. Carlson's not entirely sure where Mr. Drake is going with all this, so he uses an umbrella example, a rain example. How many holes does it take before an umbrella changes into something else? Meaning one hole in an umbrella. Meaning if you put one hole in an umbrella, would that umbrella stop being an umbrella? Would it still work? Or would that one hole probably has little effect on that umbrella protecting one from rain? Maybe a little will go through, but it still functions as an umbrella. The umbrella example is they want to poke as many holes into the symbiote to see what it changes into. Here we get a heartbreaking narration of Venom inside of an abandoned building threaded throughout this issue demonstrates that it's more than just a separation anxiety, with parts of the alien creature falling apart in goop like jelly. This followed by a flashback of red and black colors meshed together over a violent scenario from the past where the symbiotes took over worlds, different times, and they just conquered in a brutal way. But yet Venom is going through some kind of separation anxiety with Dylan. Dylan believes Eddie Brock has died, which we all know better from issue number 1. You can check out that review if you like. Dylan admits that whenever he sees a Venom symbiote, he thinks of his father, and the symbiote mourns its longtime host in the inner monologue. God and Eddie Brock are both dead. Dylan is also chastised with the symbiote for abandoning it. Venom with Eddie is gone, and Dylan is resisting the urge to bond with the symbiote, which has no sense of direction. A confrontation with Dylan only serves to pretty much clarify this deal. And Dylan once again tells him, hey, every time I see you, man, I expect to see my father, and I'm disappointed, you know? So the symbiote vowed to protect Dylan and carry on Eddie's efforts to be a better father, but Dylan refuses to reciprocate. More of a personal story in this issue, which is totally cool, but it was way more interesting with Eddie Brock in issue number 1, but I am sure we'll get to that because this story is juggling 2 different storylines here. Eddie Brock's storyline and the Dylan storyline. Dylan is starting to feel isolated from Eddie due to younger Brock remaining suspicious of the symbiote. Now, Archer has discovered a massive conspiracy involving the Life Foundation regarding shell corporations and the money being funneled through a shell corporation, so she essentially follow the money, and Dylan offers his assistance as the Foundation pursues him. However, recent events have shattered his connection with the Venom symbiote at a time when their bond is probably more important than ever. Archer decides to sneak into a small research facility in Plymouth to dig deeper into the information regarding the symbiotes and the money. With the light comedic play afterwards when Dylan offers to join Archer along with his cat, Sleeper, there is a mild action sequence mostly left to the reader's imagination after they knocked out a few of the security guards around within the facility. However, the situation quickly takes a turn from the worst after Archer tells Dylan to go check the terminal, leading him to an empty room. Before he can react, Archer closes the door on him, trapping him inside the metallic room. Dylan is suddenly surrounded by Life Foundation mercenaries while the previously known cat, Sleeper, the symbiote, was transformed into this huge symbiote form and starts wrecking and having and putting some asses on the floor to protect Dylan. However, the room is rigged against the nature of their powers as sound waves are used to render the alien helpless in a matter of seconds, with the next page showing him contained and an unconscious Dylan. Archer had to betray Dylan's trust because when they figured out that Archer was closing in on their investigation onto him, she had to do this to protect her life. The Life Foundation, which seeks to accelerate the evolution of symbiotes through a variety of violent means, was founded as a survivalist organization, steadily but surely preparing for survival but investigating what makes the alien race so resilient. At the end of the issue, Life Foundation head Carlton Drake grants one of his mercenaries a new high-tech suit, hinting at a foe for Venom. The issue ends with the last dialogue being, "So what do you say, Mr. Carlson? Feel like taking the spearhead out for a spin?" With a weathered Venom on display in the last panel, just going through some emotional turmoil. The issue is much lighter on action than the previous installments, and that suits the story at hand just fine. Don't get me wrong, it's cool, but Eddie Brock and what happened in issue number 1, that is a lot more interesting. But the main event here is Dylan pulling at a thread that's been there all along. A major conspiracy is forming that stretches back through the history of the symbiotes on Earth. One that may factor into Venom and his offspring lives in ways we probably cannot understand just yet. This is another solid issue which adds a few more layers to the story and brings us a little closer to the conspiracy. I don't know where this is going to lead to, but the writing is very on point on this one in my opinion. Link in description if you wish to add this comic book to your comic book collection. I did left out some details in this review, but you know what? You'll dig this book because I dug it. We begin this issue with Venom in an abandoned warehouse. The molecule secreted into the air is Sleeper. Sleeper is secreting molecules in the air for Venom, letting Venom know that Sleeper and Dylan are in trouble. Because in the previous issue, Sleeper and Dylan were kidnapped or were taken by the Symbiote Foundation. And Sleeper's left Venom a trail to follow. Venom is going back and forth like Dylan made his own choice. Why should I follow him now like some faithful dog? Why must I keep him from his consequences? He wanted to go by himself. But why? Damn you, Eddie Brock. Every time he looks at me, he sees you, or he wants to see you. But how do I say to your boy that? How do I show him that I'm still holding all the pieces you left because I bonded with you, Eddie? That's the predicament that Venom is in. He doesn't want to see me, but at the same time, I am you, Eddie. Like, I'm everything about you. And out of nowhere, this spear comes in, sets Venom apart. And what that spear came from is Spearhead. And Venom's like, oh, you, what are you doing here? I know you. I smell your fear from dripping. Didn't I already break you once? And then Spearhead is like, you tried, and I'm sure you will again, freak, but I'll come prepared this time. And this Spearhead's got a point to make. Then we go to the Alchemix research and testing facility where villain's getting pushed to his limits. And what they're doing is they're mapping out the symbiote codex and what the results are inside of Dylan. Ever since the subject was brought in, Dylan, they've been studying his codex interaction with the wide range of Clintar biomaterial, or symbiotes, since the Carnage attack. One of the lab technicians is like, well, the expectation is to see if the symbiote codex bonds with the boy's existing DNA. But when they initiate the bonding to Dylan with this symbiote, they seem to be seeing some sort of breakdown. They don't know what it is. And this girl, Miss Allen's just looking, studying, waiting to get to her purpose. They're focused on this. Dylan, is he gonna be okay? And the technician's like, we need more data, Miss Allen. I'm doing my best to alleviate the pain. You can tell Dylan's in pain, but I'm afraid we're pushing him to his limits. Monitor his vitals and continue testing, doctor. I can't make this choice light. We spent enough time around the Brock Simmons to know without a doubt the work we're doing here will save countless lives in the context of what is to come. So his pain will save the lives of everybody else. We're doing great work here. As she walks away, goes into her office, you can tell she has a guilt trip about this. So Spearhead is going to work on Venom, wiping the floor with him, and he's getting confident and cocky. I don't see it. My employer thinks you're some great enigma, but I just don't see it. I don't see what's so point about you. He wants to poke holes and dissect you. I just don't see it. But you know what? My orders are still orders. So in other words, he's playing with his food at this point just to examine it, just to let him know I got the flex here. And these spear tips, they're resonant nanomaterials. They're self-healing, self-assembling molecules that vibrate with the spear, acting like a tuning fork that separates you out. So guess what? I know my limitations and I learn from them. Do you know your limitations? I know I'm just an expensive suit, Venom. Do you even know what you are without a host? No, you don't. So meanwhile, Venom escapes on a nearby passing semi-truck and just gets away from him because he knows he's completely outmatched. But Spearhead lets him get away. And he gets an intercom from Mr. Carlson, you know, let's not get ahead of ourselves, all right? Ours is a long game, and we prodded that beast enough for the day. Now we wait and watch and see what comes next. So in the laboratory, Dylan is just crying, going through some emotions right now. He's getting pushed to limits in terms of mental and physical right now, and emotionally as well. Dad, I'm lost, I'm in pain. When times were rough, I knew you come find me, fighting for the both of us, and Sleeper's trapped in his laboratory cage too. So he prays in a way to his dad, if you're still out there, Eddie, I could use a little help. This odd but awesome fashion in this panel, all the symbiotes in this lab break out from their tubes. They're like, what the heck is going on? We see the form of Eddie Brock. Dylan, all the symbiotes are saying, Dylan, I gotta get your attention. What is this? Is this really you, Dad? Listen to me, Dylan. I can't hold this form for very long. Are you really here, says Dylan. I am, but I'm not. Are you alive? I am, but I'm dead. I'm here, but I'm not. I mean, it's kind of like, what the heck kind of writing is this? But I totally get it. It kind of does make sense in a way, but I'm sure we'll get an explanation for that. So Eddie Brock continues to deal. Listen to me. Did you contact Archer? Where is she and where are you now? I can't trust her, Dad. It's because of her. She betrayed me and I'm stuck in this place. Who the heck am I supposed to believe now? For this half-formed thing, or the one who showed up at the home in issue number 1 while you called me on the phone? And then Eddie Brock's like, oh, I'm out of time, son, but I can fix all this. Kang was wrong. I can fix it. And that's referencing issue number 1. And then his last words to Dylan were, you have to figure out on your own who your friends are. But I can tell you right now, the symbiote will come for you. Dad, wait! As long as there's still life in that flesh, Venom will find you, says Dylan. And this is the monologue we get. The symbiote may be a lot of unsavory things, but Venom will never let you down. How do you know that, Dad? And then he gets away because Eddie Brock lets him out, unties him from before. Because I know that symbiote better than it knows itself. And there, in that blackness, is a part of me that will never leave your side, Dylan. Because we are Venom. That's what Venom was trying to say in the beginning of this issue right there. So as he escapes, runs away, and goes to find Sleeper. He finds Sleeper, tries to break him out of his laboratory cylinder, and he can't. Liz Allen goes in there with all the goons, with all the guns, like, hey, stay down. You know, let's try to talk this out. No, we're not talking this out. Screw talking it out. I ain't in the mood to talk no more. But in that moment, the black tar of venom seeps through the ventilation system. And what happened next convinces Liz Allen of the dangers to come more than any doomsday saying I could do. For that moment, Venom bonds with Dylan, and in that moment they realize the sequence of complex biological changes that Dylan's unique physiologically. Gosh, you know, that's too many big terms for me. Finally, it's the glorious teeth that Liz Allen and all those around it begin to realize with Carlton that the symbiote that knew as Venom is turning into something new. You push it to his limits, you don't know what you're gonna get. Towards the end of this issue, Meridius comes through a portal and he tells Carlton Drake, you know, we got roles to play here. And Carlton Drake's like, okay, that's cool. I trust you. Trust! That implies choice on your part and chance of mine. Remember this, Carlton Drake. You were once a man whose ambitions left you for a mangled creature. Less than human. I restored you to what you are now. Yours is not to doubt or trust. You are just as Liz. She is a small part in inevitability. You will continue to push that symbiote to its limits, all right? And Liz will continue to push that boy beyond his, and I will play my part. And that part is to scare the little boy, will you? And we see Bedlam emerging, and Bedlam is the one gonna do all the scaring right here. And that's how we end this issue. I thought this was a great read, fantastic read. Link in description if you wish to add this comic book to your comic book collection. As far as the pacing of the story, I mean, look, I kind of would prefer a little bit more of a faster pace. I mean, this is issue number 4, about to go issue number 5, and we don't know too much about the Symbiote Foundation and what their plans are. Really, it's enough to keep me intrigued. I'll keep reviewing the next following issues, but I dug the book. My negative on this, if there is a negative, is can we just go a little faster, please? Just a little faster, not too much. But with that being said, now we begin this issue with who Meridius is, and we get to know a little bit more, if not a lot more about him. Meridius talks about, in a game like this, you can set up the board, but even after the play has started, I am not restricted to linear moves. He is playing against a novice, Eddie Brock, who tumbled helplessly through the centuries, unable to control his fall. And if you notice in the yellow background, it highlights future and past events, and also foreshadows future events that how Meridius is traveling through time. He is time's master. He's had millennia to prepare for the game that he's playing with, and the son that Eddie Brock left behind, Dylan. Thousands of years to become who I must be to win it. Meridius, I am the highest, who surrounds all things, that he flexes his mind. So obviously, a person who's lived with millennia and able to travel through time back and forth, knows all, bees all, and everything else is just primitive and everyone else is like ants to him. You can see how this guy has the ego of Cain the Conqueror, maybe more of an ego. And then we get this flashback to Meridius in the garden. This is exactly what takes place in issue number 1, how Eddie Brock sends his mind back in time and he comes across with Meridius. And we pick off exactly where we left off in issue number 1. In the back of his mind, he's like, look at him, struggling out of the ooze like a lungfish he is. He's just silly and a primitive creature. But you know what? He's going to try to befriend him, earn his trust, make it seem like he's his mentor. But deep down or inside of all that, Meridius hates Eddie Brock, but this is a chess game to him. This is a game to him. So as Eddie Brock recovers himself, he takes a walk with Meridius. You said this was your garden. He's like, yes, I shaped it to my preferences. Yes, the sleeping symbiotes aren't disturbed by that. It's just a beautiful flower if you look at it that way. Trust me, after 10,000 years, shape becomes a meaningless concept. And Eddie Brock's like, dude, you're speaking like you're from out of this world, because he's literally like from out of this time. If you say so, maybe I'll ask one of them. But if you can plug in like that, you must be like, and he interrupts him because, you know, he's from the past, right? And from the future, and he's like, knows what he's gonna say. You mean like, no, like a king in black? And Eddie Brock's like, well, are you like, no, are you him? Oh, no, I am not, no, but I am a king in black. In fact, we all are. But in the back of Meridius' mind, he's like, how little you understand, you primitive being, you're so stupid. But he just has to play along with him because this is the chess game that he's playing with Eddie Brock. And he introduces Eddie Brock to these new fishes, Wild and Tyro. Wild is a king from the relatively soon after your own time, Eddie Brock. Tyro, he's more well-behaved and he's from what, like a later timeline. And you guessed it, Eddie, they're both king and black, just from different timelines. Obviously, they both came here the same way you did. And Tyro interrupts him by saying, yeah, by unshackling your mind from the flow of time. Just like how Eddie Brock did. He's physically not there, but this is his conscience, this is his mind that's in the garden of time. And Meridius, we get to see how powerful and how on top of the hierarchy that Meridius is when he tells these other King in Blacks, don't ever speak for me, especially to Tyro. And Tyro's like, I'm so sorry, Meridius, I didn't mean to disrespect you. I just want to learn from you. And he's like bootlicking, kissing his ass, brown nosing, because Meridius is just all that powerful in his thing. So Meridius apologizes to Eddie Brock. It's frustrating how we're all King in Blacks, but that doesn't make us friends. But don't worry, Eddie Brock, I'm going to teach you how to navigate through time so you can get through your own timeline. And then another symbiote comes, and another King in Black, Finnegan, and these symbiotes, Tyro and Wild, all know like, oh boy, here we go again. And before Finnegan can warn Eddie Brock about something, just please listen. You have to listen to me. Just have a few seconds. That's all I need. Bedlam, which is like Meridius's pet, comes in and just fights Finnegan, like, get out of here, I will kill you, I hate you. And Eddie Brock's like, what in the hell is going on? Oh, Wild is like, that's just Bedlam. I'm sorry, he's got a lot of problems. They both do. Just die, says Bedlam, and they just go after one another. And Eddie Brock's like, dude, I can't stand by and watch this. And Wild and Tyro are like, dude, you're just gonna let Eddie Brock fight him? Like, you're just gonna let this happen? Let him go if he wants to. It doesn't matter. I've seen the future. It doesn't matter. So if you notice in the beginning of this issue, there's a small little hint when Meridius is passing through time where he foresees Eddie Brock fighting Bedlam. But it doesn't matter to him because he knows the outcome of it. And Bedlam fights back with Eddie Brock, biting his arm. It's like, it's surprising, like you just see your arm bitten off, but this is your conscience, so he's not in his physical body, you know? Look at these cavemen go, like just primitive creatures, just going to work at one another. And Wild is like, we all can't be as enlightened as you, Meridius. How come it's not you breaking this nonsense up? And Meridius is like, why should I? We're kings in black, minds without bodies, in the garden of bodies without minds. Let the goose splatter. If that's how Bedlam wants to ease his tension, it won't hurt anyone. Oh, so I guess that's just practical, right? Well, wait till Eddie Brock finds out the truth, says Wild, that you're trapped as we are in a cage all your own. You created this environment, so this is your own cage. And what's funny is, first, Finnegan tries to warn Eddie Brock about something. Now he's encouraging Bedlam to kill Eddie Brock. Eddie Brock's like, what the heck are you doing? I was the one trying to save you. I saved that gray guy. He wanted me dead, and that moss, you just let him attack people? Bedlam takes Finnegan away, and Meridius is like, Finnegan is very disturbed as always when new arrivals approach, and he comes across with that same babble, and it just angers Bedlam, as you saw. I'm afraid it's just something that happens. And Wild is like, sure, something that always happens. Not like you can do anything to change that, right? I mean, you travel through time, so what the heck? And Meridius like, hey, chill, I got things to attend to, so I'm leaving. Tyro will show you the guard of Eddie Brock. And before Tyro decides to give Eddie Brock the tour, he calls Meridius like, before you leave, there's something I meant to say. I forgot to, I don't care what you gotta say. How pathetic you are. Stop crawling after me and do as you're told, as a ridiculous child you are. I have places to be. And Meridius, Matter from symbiote form, leaves and just travels back. But Eddie Brock is smart enough to know there's something larger at play. He sees how much of an a-hole that Meridius is. And as Meridius is traveling through time, he just goes on to this monologue that they're all children to me. Kings in black. Eddie Brock is most of all the child. Still, he's merely an irritation. Tyro, his wheedling need to desperate bootlicking is a source of rage. What was he trying to remember? I should have listened. But then again, I can't forget it. I can't go back. Damn him. All of them. Damn every King in black but me. I'm too angry for delicate work. I need to relieve my frustrations. But there's a moment in the past that is waiting for Meridius to visit. And this is a callback to issue number 1 where Eddie Brock is going across the galaxy saving lives and going on these rescue missions where Ringo tells Eddie Brock, you've lost, consider it a loss. But in that time, that was Meridius doing that. By him doing it, it made him feel so much better just to, really mess and set the things in motion for Eddie Brock. But before he can destroy his body, he goes back in time to get his hands dirty and do it himself. And then we go back to issue number 1 where he goes into Eddie Brock's house while Dylan's asleep. Now, as he forms into Eddie Brock and uses his human voice as Eddie Brock, he wakes up Dylan. Wake up, wake up. Lays it out play for play how he's going to tell Dylan to wake up, telling him to pack his bags. Eddie's negligence has left the child disoriented, easily directed. Meridius is like, I'll set him running to the hotel where he'll watch his father die, and it'll trigger a response, and he'll trigger a bond for him to bond with Venom, the symbiote. But something needs to start him on that way, and I won't leave that to chance, which is why he's doing it himself. And he'll leave some evidence pointing Dylan Brock to the motel, and while he's looking around in the house, he just sees this this mess, and he sees this rat, and he calls it vermin, and he uses his symbiote just to eat the rat and feel his skull pop inside of his mask. And he hears Dylan talking to Eddie Brock over the phone, which is still a callback to issue number 1. He hears Eddie Brock's over the phone, and he's like, "Is that you, Eddie? I honestly couldn't say that for sure at this point." And he knows Eddie Brock escapes the garden, but he doesn't know how. How do you return to this moment? Or is that me from farther along on my own timeline? I don't know, but he hears the voice to go to the motel. The voice on the phone says, "But whatever you do, don't bond with the symbiote." And Meridius in Eddie Brock's body is like, "Oh, Eddie, I honestly hope that is you. I hope you're that much of a fool." But Meridius tells himself, "I mustn't get too confident," because usually villains who are that cocky with that much ego, or they're too confident, and usually that's their demise. In the end, all Eddie really is to me is just another playing piece. The true game against my true opponent has only just begun. This intrigues him because he doesn't know if that Eddie Brock who's talking to Dylan over the phone is him or if it's Eddie, but he knows Eddie escapes the garden but doesn't know the play here. But he made the first move. Dylan Brock bonds with the symbiote. That's what needs to be established, and that is unalterable. So now the symbiote will begin its own journey to the place where I am waiting, and when it arrives, I will greet it and I will shed the name Meridius as I have so many times before. For on that day, we will become Venom. And that's how we end Venom issue number 5. I'm cool with this issue. I thought this was a gangster read. Link in description if you wish to add this comic book to your comic book collection. I love how a villain who's that egotistical can travel through time and is so confident, and he's going through millennia, setting up these pieces, setting up the past, the future for an outcome that he wants to control, that he needs to lead to. Now, I love how it's interesting how he doesn't know if that's Eddie Brock from the future talking to his son or if it's him, but it intrigues him. I dig it. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how this issue plays out, and I definitely will be reviewing further issues of this line. With that being said, Venom issue number 5. What you guys think of the comic book? Comment below, let me know. And also, if you like the content we're throwing up, you know what to do. Don't be shy, don't be stingy. Here at Rated Comics, we do awesome comic book reviews, comic book related content with the occasional comic book giveaway. Thanks again for watching. Until next time.